Listen, we'll talk about Halloween here in a second, just talking about costumes and whatnot, and talking about, things coming back from the dead. TNA's coming back from the dead. This was the announcement made last Sunday, or Saturday, I think, after Bound for Glory. At the end of the show, I didn't watch until Sunday, and I saw a lot of people chatting about it on Sunday and whatever, but I finally caught up on Sunday, and I was like, what the fuck? And it was a great show, too. I've been following Impact. I have never not followed Impact for the last 10, 15 plus years now. Probably 1 year period a long time ago, but other than that, I've stuck with TNA through the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I mentioned TNA. TNA is back. TNA is coming back from the dead starting in January of 2024. Now, we don't talk about Impact here on the show. I do Impact interviews and stuff. We don't really talk about Impact itself. It's a great show, actually. It's actually consistently entertaining, at least from what I find from watching the show the last couple of years. But they're ditching the Impact name in favor of TNA. TNA is on its way back, and the internet... There has been some criticism from like me and other people, but the vast majority of the response has been pretty positive, which is kind of surprising to me. And you saw it as well. You DM me about it as soon as it happened. Talk about that. TNA is on its way back, Mr. Marceau. Again, like I said, we don't really talk about TNA much or Impact here much on the show, but I did want to get your 2 cents on this because me personally, I'm not a fan of this at all.
No, I mean, I guess like the only positive I could think of is like maybe like old people that used to watch TNA, it's like the name itself's back, but like, do they have like a TV deal? Like, I don't even know where they're even on. So it's like, they can bring back TNA. I feel like it's a step back. Like, TNA switched to Impact. Now it's going back to TNA. It's like, you're going back to a past failure. I don't know. I think like business-wise, it's not the greatest move. Like I said, if anything, it's more like a nostalgia thing, but I don't think like all these people are just going to go start watching TNA again.
No, I don't think so. As far as the TV deal goes, they are on TV. They're on Access TV, which is not a mainstream network. It's not Spike TV, which is where they were 10 years ago. Among other networks, they've kind of gradually gone backward as far as the networks go. They actually went back up because the channel they were on before Access, they've been on Access since Impact was bought by Anthem, which owns Access TV, which is why they're on Access TV. Before that, they were on a channel called the Pursuit Channel, which I'm not even sure is around anymore, and they barely did any viewers from week to week, and a lot of people didn't have Pursuit Channel, so they had to put it on Twitch, and now they're on YouTube as well. You can watch the show on their streaming service. You can watch it on YouTube. It's a pretty easily accessible show. As far as like an actual network, they're on Access, which is not a great, widely available network. The question is, like you kind of mentioned there, in going back to TNA, does it help with that? Does it increase the exposure of the product? To me, and I would agree, I think it is a step backward. Only because they've done, in my opinion, in watching the show, such a good job of rehabbing the image and the identity of the company the past 5 years, that to go backward to calling it to what it used to be at a time when TNA's stock was lower than it had ever been, for what rationale either? Because I saw PW Insiders report that people within the company love the TNA history and they want to merge the history, which it's all the same thing anyway. It's not like Impact. It's not like it's called GFW or whatever. Like Impact is a sub-product of TNA and always has been. The show has been called Impact for the past 20 years. But you have that, and they were saying that, internationally, they call it TNA anyway. It's like, what is their base internationally anyway? I'm sure they have a good TV deal over there, but they don't run international shows. They've done a couple international shows this year. But the product, for as much good buzz as it's gotten for its good shows, hasn't really grown in terms of amount of people reached. And that's through a lot of different things of bringing talent in, working with AEW, getting exposure through them. And it didn't really make a lick of a difference. Do you think calling it TNA again, as I do, in my opinion, that when you call it TNA again, it kind of brings back the negative stench? We would always joke here on the show, oh, this person's got the TNA stench, which was a very real thing. Not literally, but figuratively. In terms of people coming out of that company, they would have to do a lot to wash away the bad booking that they endured during their time in the company. Not everyone, like there was a lot of top stars in that company, but a lot of people left on their own accord because of how bad it was in the mid-2000s.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that's my main kind of critique with it. Like, yeah, you're bringing back the nostalgia name of the company, which, like, I guess I don't know if to say it's heyday, but it was as most viewed, that's what it was called, was TNA. But like you said, I think it's also bringing back the stench, like we said, like every time someone would leave, like can they get that TNA stench off them? I don't know. I think it's just a nostalgia move, but I don't think it's gonna work like in the future. Like I don't think that's gonna like bring more people to watch. But the product, I think it's just bringing up like history.
Yeah, but that's really it. I think they're at a point now where I think it's great that people think of TNA, or at least the vast majority of people hear the initials TNA and they're thinking, oh man, I used to love TNA and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's not like if they had done this 5 years from now, I would be more of a fan of it than I am now. It's not a timing thing because it has been a while since they were called TNA. It's probably been maybe 6 years since they were TNA. It's been a long time because they were GFW for a while and then Impact. It's probably since early 2017, so probably 6 or 7 years. It's been long enough, but at the same time, though, I mean, I just see when they mention like, oh, we're going to bring back old TNA concepts and stuff like that. But again, as someone who watches the show, I can tell you they were already doing that. They already have the Ultimate X match and stuff like that on a regular basis. It's not a special thing. And if they're only going back to the company in name only, and they're not bringing back the six-sided ring, which they shouldn't. I mean, it was a cool throwback thing when they brought it back in 2014. I was a big fan of it, but that was kind of before it became public that people just did not fucking like working the ring because it would be hard on their bodies. I just don't think it's a step in the right direction for the company. I don't know. I mean, this is the most buzz that they've gotten in a long time. So, I mean, they got what they wanted with people talking about TNA. I just don't think it's a positive move. I really don't. I don't think it's going to negatively affect the company, but I always thought the initials were stupid. I mean, it's literally tits and ass. That's literally what it's called, and it started out as a joke from Vince Russo, calling it TNA like, oh, it's an inside joke type thing. But I can't imagine, like you said, that the audience is going to grow exponentially to warrant this move making sense, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I agree. I think it's, like I said, it's just more of a nostalgia thing. I would even say it's more of like a lateral move. I don't think it's going to hurt business. I don't think it's going to make it any better. It's just kind of, I don't think, like I said, I think it's just a lateral move that maybe it'll get a little buzz. Like I said, at least it's getting buzz, I guess. Like, TNA doesn't really have any buzz to begin with. But I just, like I said, I think in the grand scheme of things, it's just a lateral move that's not really going to have any effect on the company.
Got to bring back LOL TNA, the old meme, LOL TNA. But, I mean, and they haven't had a lot of LOL TNA moments in recent years, and I hope they don't going forward. Again, the product's a lot better than it used to be. But they need to send the message that if it really is a new era for the company, they got to move in a positive direction and not move backward. And that would include talent acquisitions. They've lost a lot of talent this year, and not in a bad way. They have a big turnover rate in terms of, again, not in a bad way where people work there and it's like, well, this is terrible, or I'm not being booked correctly, I'm going to move on. No, it seems like they bring people in, and then when they get bigger opportunities elsewhere like AEW or WWE, it's kind of a platform for those bigger companies. That's really Impact's identity at this point, or people will go from those companies to Impact, kind of restart their careers, and then go back to those other companies. Mia Yim did that, Chelsea Green did that. Sami Callihan was in Impact for a very long time. He actually just recently left. He might be AEW bound at some point. For what reason, I like Sami Callihan. I'm not really sure what he would do in AEW aside from like a one-off with Jon Moxley or something who he's apparently close with. But, even still, Impact has a really good roster. They've had a really good roster for a long time now. And a lot of the people that you see right now in the major companies started in TNA. Eli Drake, the now LA Knight, the number one contender for the World Championship, is a former fucking Impact World Champion. I mean, a lot of these people that we see in these major companies. Samoa Joe, we saw him on Dynamite last night, might be getting the next AEW World title shot. He is a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. You see it all, AJ Styles being another one among many other people. I hope them the best going forward. I just don't think it's a great move. That being said, though, I mean, they might be able to conjure up some positive buzz depending on who they sign going forward. This was my next topic of conversation here. That being, if they really want to send a message that TNA is destination viewing, not to be confused with Destination America, which is where they were a couple of years ago, they need to make some big moves in 2024. Moving up to a bigger network would be it. I think the CW might have more exposure than Access. It has to. The CW is a top 20 network, I believe. I think I get the CW. I don't think I get Access, but I definitely have the CW. And that's where the NWA is ending up. So if the NWA is a better TV deal than you do, that's not a great sign. But they got to work on the TV deal and the exposure with that sort of stuff. But as far as the talent goes, again, they can make a really strong impression at the beginning of 2024 with that hard-to-kill pay-per-view if they can bring in some really big names. They've brought in big names in the past, but it's been a long time since TNA had the roster that it did 10, 15 years ago, or even 20 years ago.